Good evening, my name is Jeremy Taylor. Today I'll be talking about the first three books found in the New Testament of the Bible in order to explain what a topic is called the Synoptic problem. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are the first three books which are commonly referred to as the Synoptic Gospels, and the word synoptic means of a general summary or synopsis, and in Greek it means seen as the same. With that being said, if you've ever read the first three books back to back, then you've more than likely noticed they seem to be repeating the same information. And that's because they basically are. They're telling the same story, except each with a different perspective. Now, for a long time, the teachings of Jesus were passed along orally, from person to person, and this was the common tradition for teaching back then. And because of the fact that the Synoptic Gospels were written many years after the death of Jesus, no one knows for sure which of these books were even written first, or what the literary relationship between the three writers was. Now, because there's no definitive proof to answer those two questions, we are left with what critics and Bible scholars call the synoptic problem. We do have a few hypotheses which Bible scholars have came up with trying to explain the order in which the Gospels possibly came to be. That's an attempt to solve the synoptic problem. Now, there's several different theories. Some theories are of Matthean priority, which suggests that Matthew was written first and that the other writers used his gospel as a source for their own. However, the more widely accepted theory is one of Markan priority, meaning Mark was written first, and then it was later used as the source by both Matthew and Luke. Now, there's quite a bit of different evidence, solid evidence, to support this theory. First, I'll point out that we notice most of the information that we read in the Gospel of Mark can also be found in Matthew and in Luke. In fact, 97% of Mark's information is found in Matthew, and 88% of Mark's information is found in Luke. But Matthew and Luke, although they have their own separate information, they almost never deviate together from the storyline found in Mark. Secondly, the writings were more uncultivated by Mark, and a lot rougher of a style of Greek writing. And that's especially when compared to Matthew and Luke, who seem to kind of be smoothing over the writings as they go along. Now, with that being said, we could say that one of two things may have happened. Either Mark was written first, and Matthew and Luke used his book as a reference, or the other two books were written before Mark, and Mark wrote his book, and he simply abbreviated the information he found in the other two. Here I have included a few examples of different theories or hypotheses. These are only a few. There are several that exist to explain to help solve the synoptic problem. First, we have one of Matthean priority. It suggests that Matthew wrote his gospel first, Luke wrote his gospel second, and was able to reference Matthew's book as a source for his account of the gospel. And then finally came Mark later, having used both Matthew and Luke as a source to write his book. Next, we have an example of Markan priority, which suggests that Mark wrote his gospel first. Then it was followed by Matthew and Luke, who were separately from one another able to reference Mark's book in order to write their own. And finally, we have another of the Markan priority theories. It's a two-source theory. It again suggests that Mark wrote his gospel account first. Then it was followed by Matthew and Luke. However, it also posits that there was another source from which Matthew and Luke were able to pull from. It was a hypothetical document called the Q. Now, nothing suggests that this existed. There's no hard evidence to prove that it did, but it would certainly alleviate some of that synoptic problem, explaining some of the literary connection between the two writers of Matthew and Luke. It was a written list of many of teachings of Jesus that were originally passed down through the oral tradition of teaching. There are several other theories and hypotheses that I didn't mention, but ultimately there is no concrete evidence to prove any one theory. But I do believe one day God will reveal the answer to this and many other mysteries when we meet Him in heaven. Have a great day and God bless.